All right, let's take a look at the death of Yordano Ventura. The same day, we also got the death of Andy Marte in the Dominican Republic. You know, Ventura's from the Dominican Republic. He's a Kansas City Royal. He even won the World Series in 2015 with the Kansas City Royals. If you go back and watch my videos, that whole World Series was super connected to Pope Francis's visit to the United States and also to Queen Elizabeth. Think about it, the Royals and whatnot, the Mets, they were playing the New York Mets. The Mets play in Queens, New York, and a whole lot more. Let's look at some of the gematria really quick. And if you don't know what gematria is, it's the practice of coding numbers into words, and it's used by Freemasons and people alike, the people who, you know, they give us our media, they script the media, they script the sports leagues. And, you know, prime example, this year the 112th World Series came to an end on November 2nd, 11/2. The year before, when the Royals won the 111th World Series, it came to an end on 11/1. And the reason the Mets lost that final game was because Matt Harvey wouldn't come out of the game. And Matt Harvey finally came out of the game after 111 pitches and a ton more stuff. Queen Elizabeth, born on the 111th day of the year. New York in gematria equals 111. Anyway, let's just look. So, earlier in that year, in 2015, the Golden State Warriors won the NBA Finals. Golden State equals 122 in gematria. I talked about how that was synced up to Pope Francis as well, and there was a Philadelphia train wreck, and Pope Francis's last day of being in America that year, he went to Philadelphia. There's a big deal in regards to the Key of David that is mentioned in Revelation in the Bible, but I'm not going to go into that. But Pope Francis equals 122, just like Golden State, just like if you write out Kansas City, 122. So how fitting that this guy dies on January 22nd, 1/22, 122. The same year, though, they beat the New York Mets. And if I could find my deal here, New York Mets in gematria, 168. Queen Elizabeth II, 168. Would you believe that Cleveland Cavaliers, who lost in the NBA Finals that year, also equal 168? And a ton more, you know? I've talked about it all year. Last year, how every sports championship was synced up to the year 1985, and also to a tribute to Prince Charles, Queen Elizabeth's son. And 1985 is significant because of Back to the Future, and in 2015, Back to the Future was when the Cubs were supposed to win the World Series. But I've explained why it still went on to this year. His death is even connected to the Cleveland Indians as well, Yordano Ventura. And I'll get into that, but I just wanted to re-explain a little bit of stuff that I've previously mentioned. I mean, the reason, as I followed it that season or whatever, the reason that I was pretty sure the Royals were going to win the World Series was even because a guy dressed up as Pope Francis got a home run ball on 6/6 of 2015. In 15, 1 + 5 is 6. A lot like 666, a guy dressed up like Pope Francis caught a home run ball of Salvador Perez. And that's what changed my mind, because the whole theme of the year was about Pope Francis's visit to the United States. And then if you recall, though, Salvador Perez was even the MVP of the World Series. Anyway, in 1985, the exact same day that Back to the Future comes to an end in Part 3, the Kansas City Royals won the World Series, October 27th, 1985. So the Cubs didn't win, but the team in Back to the Future who wins on the day that movie ends won the World Series for the first time since then, you know? It was still connected to Back to the Future. Marty McFly on his Toyota 4x4 even has KC daylighters, you know? Has KC on the front grill of his truck and everything. Kansas City, KC. And the Cubs were supposed to beat Miami, right? There's a big parallel. I'm not going to go into it big time, but, we had the death of Jose Fernandez, the Miami player this year. And I've talked a lot about Miami and how there's this weird connection through my uncle who just died, giving me the Dan Marino jersey. There's all kinds of these things that seem to be happening just a little bit after that I talk about them. I talked about my cousin who lives in Miami. The very next day, right by where he lives, we get a shooting at the airport, supposedly. And there's a whole bunch of other things, but in regards to all that Miami stuff, I started looking up things that I remembered in regards to Miami and the Dolphins. I watched the movie Ace Ventura again. And Yordano Ventura, he was the Kansas City Royals ace. Ace Ventura, and now he ends up dead. And it wasn't that long. It wasn't even a month ago when I was talking about Ace Ventura. And, there's been so many other things, and who knows? It just seems pretty weird that I was talking about Ace Ventura, and then now the Ace Ventura dies, His name in gematria even equals 67 the small way, 193 the big way. The 44th prime is 193. He died in a car crash. Car crash equals 44. See the parallel? 44th prime, car crash, 44. My instant thought with this guy, though, Kansas City Royals, all I could think about was, once again, the royal theme. There's been all kinds of just royal theming for the last few years. I just mentioned how it was connected to some of the sports championships and whatnot. A Cavalier is even a follower of King Charles during the English Civil War. This year, we had the Cavaliers win the NBA Finals, then the other Cleveland team go to the World Series and lose to the Cubs. And the last time that the Indians had went to the World Series or won the World Series was in the year 48, which was the same year that Prince Charles was born, the same year we got the closest supermoon. Donald Trump in gematria equals 48. But just keep in mind, Prince Charles, the guy that I've been talking about who's possibly going to become the new king, and that's what it seems they're foreshadowing, born in the year 48. The previous King Charleses, the kings who were the kings during the English Civil War, King Charles I died at age 48. If you write out King Charles II in gematria equals 48, and then Prince Charles born in the year 48, and now we get Donald Trump as the president. Donald Trump equals 48. Indians had won since then. Israel declared its independence in the year 48. A whole lot of stuff that I've mentioned previously. Just trying to re-exploit it. If you write out Native Americans in gematria and Jewish gematria, 1,114. Prince Charles, born on 11/14, a lot like 1,114. Lots and lots of parallels to Prince Charles, Donald Trump, and Indians, Native Americans, whatever else. So in regards to the date being January 22nd, and thinking about the royal theme, something I've been following since the beginning of the channel is the royal family, and Queen Elizabeth surpassed Queen Victoria to be the longest reigning British monarch of all time on 9/9 of 2015, just before Pope Francis came to the United States and whatnot. And the 122 date stuck out a lot because Queen Victoria died on January 22nd of the year 1901. So, interesting, she dies on January 22nd, and now we got the Royal Ventura, who dies on January 22nd. And Queen Victoria died exactly 51 years, 15 days before Queen Elizabeth II became the Queen. And I've mentioned how Donald Trump is exactly 15 years, 51 days older than Obama. Pope Francis turned 15 years old in the year 51. And Pope Francis has a bunch of connections to Donald Trump because his 1,189th day being the Pope just so happened to fall on Donald Trump's 70th birthday. on June 14th this year. And think about it, 1,189 chapters in the King James Bible. King James was the father of King Charles, who was the king during the English Civil War and whatnot. But 1,189 chapters in the King James Bible. Donald J. Trump in Jewish gematria equals 1,189. Also, Key of David equals 1,189. And in regards to Miami and Ace Ventura, and I mean, think about the Florida Keys that I've mentioned. Just after talking about all of the Key of David stuff, and the reason Colin Kaepernick didn't stand during the national anthem, I think, is something to do with the guy who wrote it, Francis Scott Key. Like Francis got the key, and the Key of David in Revelation is mentioned in regards to Philadelphia, where Pope Francis finished his trip in 2015. Francis got key. Jesus supposed to have the key. The very next day, we got the death of the Atlanta Falcon, or the ex-Atlanta Falcon, Keon Carpenter. Jesus, the Carpenter, Keon Carpenter. I mean, some weird stuff. I'm right on the tip of like what is going on. I just haven't put it all together. Anyway, I noticed that Ventura, he died 233 days after his 25th birthday. 233 is the 51st prime number. And, I don't know if it's connected to the Super Bowl or whatever, but we're going into Super Bowl 51. Super Bowl 51 will be played on 2/5 in America. But in London, it will most likely begin at 2/6, which is Queen Elizabeth's 65th anniversary being the Queen. And Prince in gematria equals 65. The Super Bowl, I can't remember what the time change was, but it might begin on 2/5 there, but it will definitely end on 2/6 in London. So just something to think about. Yordano was also born on 6/3, which it's something interesting I've been talking about since the death of my uncle, who died at the age of 63 and whatnot. But I'm not going to go into that right now. It reminds me, though, he died on 6/3, and his name, Yordano Ventura Hernandez, equals 117. It reminds me a lot of Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali died on 6/3, Ventura's birthday, but his birthday was on January 17th. So they got an interesting little parallel. Even, the Muhammad, whatever, the Prophet Muhammad, he even supposedly died at the age of 63. Then Muhammad Ali dies at the age of 74 on 6/3. Muhammad in gematria equals 74. Jesus equals 74. Lucifer equals 74. Cross 74. Gospel 74. Messiah. The list goes on. Our nation's independence 74. Masonic 74. People I'm talking about who either understand the system and using it to their advantage, or somehow they're the people who created it using some crazy technology that I don't understand. But I think it's much bigger than that. But that's just me. You take what you want. So I figured since he won the World Series in 2015, I'd check out. I went from the day that they won the World Series to the day that he died. It was a span of 449 days, which sticks out because that's the 87th prime number. And, right, he's from the Dominican Republic. That equals 87, the small way. The big way, 168. Queen Elizabeth II equals 87 and 168. Queen Victoria also equals 87. So then he dies on her birthday, 449 days later, which is the 87th prime. Ventura was also the Royals pitcher. He was the one who pitched in Game 3 of that World Series, and that was the only game that the Royals lost, and they lost 3-9. Everything in New York is all about 39. New York. NY equals 39. New York's the Empire State. Empire equals 39. It became a state on a date numerology of 39. The United Nations building in New York, 39 stories tall. There's even another building I looked up, like 30 Rockefeller Plaza, or I think it's called the Comcast building. It's the 39th tallest in the United States, supposedly. I mean, everything about New York, 39. And then the only game the Mets lost was 3-9 when Ventura was the pitcher. And, you know, even the reflection. They love to do as above, so below, the reflection. Just think about Flight 93 and all kinds of stuff. Saturn equals 93. These people worship. But anyway, we also got the death then of Andy Marte. Dies age 33, right? The master teacher number, the highest degree in Scottish Rite Freemasonry, a really important number to these people. And he dies in a car crash in the Dominican Republic, reminding, you know, two guys from the Dominican Republic die on the same day in two separate incidences the same way. That seems pretty strange, doesn't it? How do people not even think about that or question it? Anyway, his name, Andy Manuel Marte, equals 59 and 167. Kansas City Royals and Gematria equal 59. The interesting thing about 167 is what I just talked about with all the 39. 167, the 39th prime number. So how interesting is that, you know? So in Back to the Future, like I said, the Cubs were supposed to beat Miami, and this guy just so happens to be born on Back to the Future Day in 1983. You know, Back to the Future Day, October 21st, 2015. So on his 32nd birthday, it was Back to the Future Day. Just interesting. Think about it in regards to the royal family. The newspaper in that movie says that there will be a woman president. It also says that Queen Diana or Princess Diana will be the queen. Neither one of them have came true. But, you know, just pointing it out, I guess. They're both super coded into a lot of stuff that's going on. Diana is the goddess of the moon. Not actually Princess Diana, but if you look up Diana, it's the goddess of the moon. I talked about the closest supermoon since the year 48, the last time the Indians won the World Series. The Simpsons episode where they predict Donald Trump to be the president, they even go to the Indian casino and the Indian guy at the casino is the one who takes Bart into the future and whatnot to show him who's Donald Trump will be the president or whatever after or before Lisa. And much, much more to that. It ties into the Mormons and the Mormons being the Native Americans and all kinds of stuff. But let's stick to the topic here. Both Marte and Ventura have a connection to the Cleveland Indians, who just lost in the World Series. Marte played for the Cleveland Indians. You know, even on Wikipedia, they still have his Cleveland Indians jersey on here, even though he mostly played for the Atlanta Braves. So it's just kind of weird that they have that jersey on there still, the Cleveland Indians. If you go from his birthday to the day that he died 94 days after his 33rd birthday, also 3 months, 2 days. And the reason that sticks out so much, he was 33, Cleveland equals 33 in Gematria. Cleveland Indians equals 67, and the big way equals 94, right? He dies 94 days after his birthday. Cleveland Indians equal 94. Yordano Ventura equals 67 and 94, just identical to Cleveland Indians. Ventura's final Major League Baseball game was his 94th Major League Baseball game, the 32nd game of the season this year. They played the Cleveland Indians. Are you kidding me? You know, his 32nd game of the season, His 94th career game against the Indians. His name equals the same as the Indians. And just look at this. Marte, his final game was against the Kansas City Royals. What are the odds of that? His final game against the Kansas City Royals. They got a picture of him being the Cleveland Indian. Ventura's final game against the Cleveland Indians. Just ridiculous, you know? Ventura, a Kansas City Royal. Marte's final game against the Kansas City Royals. So Ventura was born on 6/3 also. 6/3, the 154th day of the year. Native Americans equal 154. Talked about this in the beginning, I believe. In Jewish gematria, 1114. Prince Charles, born on 11/14. 154th day. If Prince Charles becomes the king, his wife will become Queen Camilla. That equals 154. Restoration equals 154. And that's what they called it when... So King Charles I was executed during the English Civil War, and Oliver Cromwell became the... whatever it is, the king for a while. Not necessarily the king, but after Oliver Cromwell died, they brought back King Charles II, and that was called the Restoration. That equals 154. And just think about that. If Queen Elizabeth dies, Prince Charles will become King Charles III, a lot like Restoration, restoring the King Charles and whatnot. Native American with no S equals 63, right? 6/3 is when Yordano Ventura was born. Francis Scott Key even died at age 63 on the 1/11. Francis Key in gematria equals 111. Queen Elizabeth born on the 111th day of the year. New York equals 111. Kansas City won the 111th World Series on 11/1, beating New York after Matt Harvey wouldn't come out of the game until his 111th pitch. Just throwing it out here too, 9/11 is the day that leaves 111 days in the year. Ace Ventura equals 38, just like Andy Marte. In the ESPN video that I watched, they even brought up this guy right here, Dayton Moore, because he signed Ventura and he also signed Marte, and when he was with the Atlanta Braves. So he was born in the year 67, which reminds me of the Cleveland Indians and Ventura. Yordano Ventura 67, Cleveland Indians 67. Like I said, Cleveland Indians also equal 94 in gematria, and they had 94 regular season wins this year. If you go back and watch my baseball videos, I talked a lot about Michael Jordan as well. And what's interesting, this guy born on February 17th, the 48th day of the year. Michael Jordan also born on that day. And Michael Jordan's, in regards to 94, that's what I was talking about, Cleveland Indians, 94 was the year of the baseball strike, and that's what a lot of this was synced up to. But Michael Jordan's first ever baseball game was on 4/8, April 8th, or on the 48th day of the year. The Indians hadn't won since the year 48 when Michael Jordan played with the Birmingham Barons. He was coached by Terry Francona, the Cleveland Indians coach and whatnot. So there's a whole bunch more. I can't think of it all off the top of my head. But just interesting that this guy, born on the same day as Michael Jordan, even born in the year 67, that syncs up to the Indians. You know, it even connects to Trump even more so in regards to Kansas City, because in 1948, it was the biggest election upset in American history, which a lot like this year, that's what a lot of people believe, a big upset in regards to Trump winning. Trump in gematria equals 88. The only president ever to die at the age of 88 was Harry S. Truman. And he was from, whatever, he died in Kansas City from Lamar, Missouri, or I believe that's what it was. But I know he died in Kansas City at the age of 88. He was the 33rd president. But he was the one who upset Thomas E. Dewey in the 1948 election, the biggest election and upset in American history, right? And then the Indians hadn't won since the year 48. All of these are just weird tributes in a roundabout way to Donald Trump or whatever. You know, I don't know the exact plan, but it's all super synced up to Donald Trump and the events that are going on. Marte was even with the Atlanta Braves, and there's a big parallel between the Atlanta Braves and how it connects to, you know, the Patriots being in the Super Bowl and the Falcons being in the Super Bowl. The Atlanta Braves, they were originally the Boston Red Stockings. You know, there's a huge parallel of stuff that I've been talking about. Talked about the assassination of William McKinley as well. And William McKinley died in Buffalo, New York. Buffalo used to be, their basketball team was the Buffalo Braves, who are now the Los Angeles Clippers. You know, the Clippers are named after a boat that was used in slave trading. And then we got the stuff about Donald Sterling. Donald, think about just the name Donald and being racist, and then Donald Trump being racist. It's all just a show. Donald Sterling, right at the time that Adam Silver was becoming the new commissioner of the NBA. Sterling Silver, a Clipper is a ship, a boat. David Stern left the NBA. Stern is the back of a boat. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. I don't know how people don't catch on to that. I guess, you know what, there was a time that I didn't either, so you can't be mad at people for not understanding, but sometimes once you finally see it, man, it gets frustrating. So I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully it makes sense. He definitely died by the numbers. So did Marte, if I'm even saying his name right, or either one of their names right. And it's super connected to the royal family. So we'll see what happens. You know, we've had George Bush. Sorry for going on a rant, but I got a few more minutes here. George H.W. Bush was in the hospital with his wife or whatever. They were both in the hospital for whatever it was, pneumonia or whatever. And just after we got the story of Queen Elizabeth being super sick, we got a bunch of stories about her not attending Christmas and not attending the New Year's Eve stuff. And then she almost got shot walking outside. Lots of stuff makes it look like she's going to die soon or something. There's a parallel between George Bush as well and Queen Elizabeth. George Bush, H.W. Bush, if I can even find it here. I know I talked about it when I made the Flight 232 video. George H.W. Bush, we'll find it here. His birthday in London would be written 12/6, and his birthday 126 days after the day that Queen Elizabeth became the queen. And there was other parallels. I'll leave a link to the video I made about this. There's a whole bunch of stuff in regards to 37. Like, if you went 37 days after George Bush, who was the president during Flight 232, I mean, 37 days after his birthday was when it happened. His 65th birthday, Prince equals 65. But it was also Queen Elizabeth's 37th year as being the queen. Much, much more. Like I said, I'll leave the link. But they had a bunch of interesting parallels. His birthday, even the 163rd day of the year, Make America Great Again. 163, Barack Hussein Obama, 163. I don't know. I think he's got to make it to the age of 93. A bunch of recent presidents made it that long. Jimmy Carter is, I think, 111 days younger than George Bush even. You know, Queen Elizabeth born on the 111th day of the year. Jimmy Carter was even at the Atlanta Braves game earlier this year or whatever. Or maybe it was in 2015. He was on the Kiss Cam. And then the guy fell off the balcony just after that or before it. Can't even remember it all, you know. There's a bunch of interrelated stories, so lots of Atlanta stuff. But gonna end it there. I'm getting off topic, but not really, but sort of. So whatever. Have a good one.